Hello everyone, welcome to Legacy IAS. We are going to discuss the essays which have come in the mains paper of 2023. Right? The essay paper is out, it's done. So it's also time to look into the different topics which have come, understand the orientation, understand how do we basically solve that, what kind of orientation, what kind of perspective should we have taken, how should we arrange our thoughts. Lot of these things that are very important for an ingredient of the essay, and there has been actually a good discussion whereby we have discussed this particular topic, what are the good ingredients for an essay, and how should we best write an essay, some of the basic pointers and structures that you can go through in this particular video. As far as the mains 2023 or the essay 2023 is concerned, we will look at the first section in this particular video and the next section in the next video. All right. So the first topic that was there discussed in section A are the forests are the best case studies for economic excellence. Now, what it's trying to say, it's very important that you kind of make good sense of the topic, right? If we look at the topic here, it's saying that forests are the best case studies. So, the way in which a country is showing its economic excellence, the way to do that, one of the best case studies is through the forests. Okay? It's almost like the healthier your forests are, the better your country is. Okay, so now if we have to first begin our understanding of the topic, we are basically trying to understand the importance of forests. Okay, and how is it a resource? So if it's a resource, anything is a resource basically if there's some amount of economic value that is attached to it, right? So the way in which forests are our economic resources, okay, that is something that has to be the idea behind it. Economic excellence here in this context is referring to how forests are basically, or for that matter, how important these forests are in our discussion of economic growth and development. Okay. Primarily, we also have to look it into from the perspective of what kind of growth are we looking at. We are looking at more sustainable ways of growth, whereby we are looking at growth along with preserving and continuing with our resources and with the traditions, and also something that we've inherited. Okay, not to do away with them. Now, as far as the introduction of this particular entire essay is concerned, you can essentially have different strategies to pursue or approach this particular topic. You can talk about the entire relationship that is there between nature as well as the economy, how prosperous countries are, how countries prosperous because of natural resources, and also how these forests are utilized in the most efficient way, yet the most sustainable way, to have long term strong and durable economic growth, right? Forest as it is forms a part of the primary sector, which is almost like the backbone from which the entire cycle of production starts. So if we essentially support forests, the idea is that we are able to achieve economic excellence in the long run. All right, so this kind of focus on forests, it's not a modern phenomena, it's not a phenomena ever since we have almost woken up to the problem of climate change. It's something which has been recognized by ancient texts, including the Aryans, where or even the Vedas for that matter, where we have basically understood that how forests or nature, they were not able to decipher nature at that point of time, so nature was worshipped. But the point is that it was treated as a place which could give a lot of pride, prestige, or for that matter, a lot of support, economic development to mankind, social support, right? So forests have always been treated as as sane, as pristine. It's always treated as something which is a giver and not too much of a taker. So when we move on to the main context of this entire essay, you can talk about the usages, the usage of forests, its multifaceted usages, how in which all sectors it's so very relevant. It's very much important the way in which it kind of acts as a natural barrier. Of course, we have problems like guerrilla warfare, but that is another problem of a issue that gets created. But in terms of security, it can automatically act as a boundary or a barricade and can prevent us from trespassing or infiltration. And if there is security, you basically are in a position to achieve some amount of economic growth. It's also very much effective for medicines as far as India's traditional medicines are concerned. And today, the way in which we are, a tourism destination, medical tourism destination, we're also, kind of providing the world with generic drugs and vaccines. Lot of these, its raw materials, ingredients come from these forests, which make up a whole important sector. It's important for transport, it's important for communication, the way in which raw materials are being provided by the forest. It's important for a lot of industries which are based out of the produce of forests. So, lot of primary goods based resources and factories and secondary sector is based out of this, which in a larger context contribute to economic excellence. Wildlife conservation is also something which is very, very essential as far as the forests are concerned, and wildlife and maintaining some kind of this balance in nature is essential for maintenance of mankind as well. So we have time and again, history has shown that the reasons, or rather the functions, the benefits of having a good forest area are ample, and the over exploitation, or rather affecting too much these forests, are basically often even lead to the end of civilization. So it's very important to maintain or continue these forests. It's also good to link these forests to the concept of urbanization, which has also happened, but then to be done in the most sustainable fashion. Right? Now, towards the end, you can conclude by saying that how the idea or the element should be towards a more sustainable future. You can give examples of India's Himalayas, how they are ecologically so fragile, okay, and how there should not be over exploitation, because the effects of it are actually felt on economic, social, political levels, all right, and definitely environmental levels. You can even talk about the Western Ghats, and you even have to, if you need to cite examples from across the globe, you're more than welcome to do that, right? So we are essentially looking at some kind of a sustainable future whereby economic growth is coupled up with forest conservation and avoid forest degradation, right? When we move on to the next topic, extremely interesting topic, open ended, all right, slightly philosophical in nature as well. And the way to approach it can be slightly varied. So I've only mentioned the line of thought. Different people can have different approaches, and here you can use a lot of examples to support your argument. So examples can basically themselves act as arguments as well. All right. Now, as far as the broad idea is concerned, essentially the topic says that poets are unacknowledged legislators of the world. It's almost like there are some people who are the face of a country, of any political system, okay, any democratic or autocratic, whatever may be, but there are some people who are the faces who are supposed to run the country. Say, for example, the political executive in India, okay. Now, the actual running of the country is being done by the permanent executive, okay. Just that very same way, I'm just trying to help you explain why is it said that they are unacknowledged legislatures, because here the amount of value and importance that is being given to the poets is even lesser. They don't hold any such official position in the political sphere to kind of come across as legislators. So the point that we're trying to make out here is that poets basically use their craft, their art, to communicate the new ideas that they have to the world and to the human experience. They kind of bring in and introduce a lot of times, a lot of ideas, or they are creating a satire which often creates a ground for legislation. They often draw attention to some of the problems in the society, which becomes legislations eventually. So they are, kind of acting as a major catalyst and the real legislatures in a lot of ways. Okay, because they are doing the philosophical, the ground reality, bringing attention to it, laying down the problems, and sometimes even giving solutions. All right, so they essentially manage to create a significant impact on the world. All right, so in that context they are referred to in this particular essay as unacknowledged legislatures. All right, so you can start by referring to a couple of examples. You can start by some of these conclusions to show, or rather some of these interpretations to show that you've been able to make sense of the topic. And what do you think of it? Try to maintain a proper flow and structure. It's always advisable to have a rough work. To have a rough work to show that yes, this is the kind of writing, this is the kind of structure that you will be following here. All right, now what it also says that some of the examples that we can cite as far as this particular essay is concerned, one is where, say for example, how poetry or poets have led to or pushed for the abolition of slavery. Okay, how pushed for people to even die for freedom, come up with a lot of theatrical displays, creating larger than life issues, creating a halo around people who have sacrificed their life, trying to create it as a very holy, pristine act. So the way in which you eulogize particular things, the way in which poets kind of upgrade or degrade something, that creates a sense of that creates an impression in the society, and definitely that resonates into important legislations. All right, they play a major role in the way people think, and also they act by communicating the ideas and also their emotions through the language. So their portrayal and depiction influences the way in which legislatures would think, how much of importance they would associate to a particular thing, and what they might want to remove. A lot of it depends on the way in which poets have the power to use language to create that kind of an impact. All right, so we have very distinguished poets like Kabir, Rahim, Raidas, who've basically written about lots of socio-political issues that were confronted by the country. All right, and how they have managed to bring about a change in the society. So since they're able to kind of push for that change in the society, which is in a way trying to bring a new law, a new legislation, that is the reason why they are referred to as the unacknowledged legislatures, right? So it's important that you understand the topic and you have your own frame of mind, your own examples to kind of take the entire essay forward. The next topic that we have is that history is the series of victories won by the scientific man over the romantic man. Now, when we say or when we use the word scientific, we are kind of referring to words like logic, okay, logic, rationality, all right, objectivity, driven by facts, On the other hand, if you look at a romantic man, it is driven by emotions, all right? It is not driven by logic, it is driven by, or it is influenced by a lot of sentiments, and is the exact opposite of a scientific man, right? So what it's trying to say, what this essay is trying to mean, is that you actually have won wars in history when a man is scientific in its approach as compared to when a man is romantic. So now the focus of this particular essay is going to be how you are trying to emphasize upon scientific reasoning behind the act of winning war, instead of just some idealist impressions. A lot of times Indian rulers, especially while facing the Britishers or even the northwestern invaders, they have fallen for a lot of idealistic kind of characteristics, which have not gone down well in terms of winning wars. Okay, romantic man is the one who is basically subject to a lot of idealism and medievalism and utopia. In fact, from ancient period, there has been a debate between Plato and Aristotle, where Plato is trying to talk about philosophical society, philosopher king, and also he's always looked for a perfect society. This is slightly different from the ideas of his contemporaries. So this kind of an impression is different from the way in which you essentially win wars. Because when we speak of romanticism of the ancient period or the medieval spiritual thoughts, essentially they also had an edge over the scientific rational outlook. This is a perspective which you can give, trying to show an alternative to your topic in question. So that it's trying to show that it is not, romanticism is not all bad. It is trying to bring in a lot of solace to people, and also something which science and rationality has not been able to provide. It has helped people, provide them with hope, provide them with a lot of reason to live. Towards the end, we can conclude by saying that definitely science is very important for the way in which modernity has kind of evolved, technology has evolved, but equally we are talking of humans, a world where humans are living, and romanticism is something which is essential for their overall growth and progress and peace and development. So that can be a good conclusion to end, but stick to the argument which is being made in the essay, and that will really help you continue with your entire argument that you're trying to make. And finally, a very interesting topic, yet quite simple enough. A ship in harbor is safe, but that is not what ship is for. So you could have a very comfortable life, if not as a civil service aspirant. You could have a comfortable life, not studying for longer number of hours, not having to study subjects which you've left back in your school days, all right? But then if you do that, you will not achieve becoming a civil servant, okay? So it's also the kind of battle you want to take up in life. It's also the kind of challenge or choice you want to take up. So what it's trying to say, that although safety is definitely good, but you hardly achieve much. You are in a kind of a secured situation. You don't really achieve much. Moreover, what is safety is there for someone staying in the harbor. Purpose is when you essentially are there in the ocean. And ocean is symbolized with a lot of turbulence, okay, with a lot of challenges, difficulties, uncertainties. So only when you face this do you actually achieve something in your life. All right. So the purpose here is trying to show that. So your main content can revolve around that, how an individual can make choices in life as to what kind of a safe and comfortable route wishes to take, or this kind of challenging, kind of insecure and difficult and unpredictable, rough kind of a ride it wants. Which direction does it want to go into? Taking risk essentially involves a lot of uncertainty, but also one gets into it because there is a lot of course, it has to be a calculated risk, not a random risk, but that actually is also something that can be pointed out here. So when it's done with that slight amount of calculation, it leads to infinite opportunities, learnings, as well as growth. All right. So lot of such efforts have been taken by individuals in the past, and how they could have stayed, at the harbor, but they chose to go out there and make that difference that it's needed for, and that's how they've been known in the society and years after their death as well. So we have the lessons by Buddha and Mahavira, who could have actually been in their comfortable lives, but they went out in search for salvation and devotion, and they also went against the existing Brahmanical domination, right? So they could have led a much comfortable life otherwise. Same with Ram Mohan Roy, who was from Zamindar family, so he could have been in a much comfortable position during the British era. But he left that part aside, or rather, not continuing to enjoy that comforts. He stood for abolition of sati and also the very conservative nature that was there in the Hindu society. So the point that we're trying to make is that, of course, if you stay at the harbor, journey is smooth, but it's also very, very predictable, very same, and sometimes some amount of change is always healthy, encouraged, and something that really gives you a certain purpose in life. So, of course, getting out of the comfort zone and taking the first step is always the hardest, but soon when you get a hang of it, it actually becomes one of the most interesting journeys. And I hope that is also the journey that you are experiencing right now, where it was initially very, very challenging with the new subjects and the new books on your way. But towards the end, you've basically had a hang of things, and you are much more interested in studying about what's happening around me and the static subjects as compared to what you were. So that's what the purpose is in this particular discussion as well. So I hope you've benefited from the discussion. Stay tuned for the next video on essays.